Hello, and welcome to the Labor Zone podcast, where we unite the working class history of Philadelphia here, there, and everywhere. My name is Sam James, and I'm joined by my good friend and co host.
I'm Gabe Christie. I was trying to figure out what kind of pun you were going to make with this.
That's the best I got.
Today we're joined by
Rosslyn Wuchinich. I'm a union organizer, and I'm the president of Unite Here, Local 274 in Philadelphia and Eastern Pennsylvania.
who and or what is Unite Here 274?
So we are the food service and hotel workers, hospitality workers union in Eastern Pennsylvania. We represent hotel workers in Philadelphia and surrounding areas. And we represent food service workers in a number of different privatized food service workers in a number of different sectors, in particular down in the stadiums in South Philadelphia is a big part of our membership, and the Philadelphia International Airport, all the people that make the food there is also a big part of our membership.
Fantastic. And I spent a little bit of time down at the stadium picket lines over the summer or last year.
Thank you for joining us.
A good rainy day, but they found me a canopy. So, I guess if we can start by just getting to know you, and can you give us a little bit of a background on how you got involved in labor movement and how you ended up as the president in 274?
Yeah, I'm bad at the short story because as the older you get, the more you realize how complicated the true story of how you ended up doing what you're doing is. But
we're a history podcast. We can go with the long story.
That's true. Yes, appreciate that. So I grew up in another big city like Philly. I grew up in New York City, and I grew up in a neighborhood called Washington Heights, which is a majority immigrant neighborhood, majority Dominican, but also a lot of other mostly Latinx immigrants. And as a white person growing up in that neighborhood. And I think that for me, the sort of stark inequality in New York City, which of course we have here in Philadelphia also and throughout our whole country, but it was very stark growing up where I grew up in New York City, and the divides just in my small neighborhood were really very clear, block by block, and those divides were economic divides and they were racial divides. The economic lines were also very much racial lines in that part of the Heights. And as I went through the public school system in New York City, I saw the kind of growing racial segregation as I went through, from my neighborhood public school to like a public magnet. It's kind of like Central High School here or something like that. And I just saw, for me, it was very clear that everything about equality wasn't real, and that we were going to have to figure how that changed was for me the question. I was also, as a young woman, involved in a lot of feminist organizing at a young age in high school, and that was really important to me. Holding on to my self-respect as I went through adolescence, which is, I think, for any person born female, is a real struggle for others too. But and I think that I met through that organizing I was doing. I actually met people doing a lot of youth organizing in New York and community organizing, and I was just really fortunate to meet organizers at a very young age. And the first time I met somebody who was a community organizer, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's what they do. To me, I knew that people could go into politics or policy or law. And I kind of thought that was how maybe things were supposed to change. But the first time I met people actually doing organizing in neighborhoods in New York, I was like, this is clearly that's the idea that people should be brought together to actually determine themselves, their future, made a lot of sense to me from just kind of where I was growing up. And the idea that maybe I could be part of that was more exciting than anything else I could think of doing with myself. So that I was very committed to that, and tried to learn everything I could about how to organize. And I did some community organizing in New York. I did some tenant organizing and stuff, but I just happened to be coming into organizing at a time when the labor movement was beginning to shift in the United States. So like I think it was called the New Voices program at the AFL-CIO, and John Sweeney had taken over the AFL-CIO. It was the first time we had a service sector leader leading the AFL-CIO. And the rhetoric was rhetoric of, we're going to organize all the people that have been excluded. Women and people of color will be at the center. We're going to organize the unorganized. It was a very, very exciting moment, and a lot of outreach to young people to bring us into that excitement. So I was kind of caught up in that, and it was exciting. I started organizing in New York City in 2001 with what was then HERE, now Unite Here, Local 100. Which is a food service workers local, mostly cafeteria workers at the time, and like cafeteria workers on Wall Street and in Midtown New York. So for me, as somebody that grew up there, I felt like we were, organizing in the belly of the beast. A lot of the workers lived in the neighborhood that I grew up in. It was a very exciting place to be organizing and exciting organizing to be doing. I was also I should say, because I've realized the importance. In the year prior to starting with the union, I got swept up with the global justice movement and happened to be in Seattle during the World Trade Organization protests in 1999, and spent a year traveling around and organizing folks around that work, including I was here in Philadelphia for that. And that was a really transformative year that really showed me what was possible when large numbers of people, take action, direct action, nonviolent direct action together. It was transformative, and I was inspired by the idea of doing that with a working class, multiracial, multi-gendered base.
That's awesome. And yeah, just talking about economic divide and then thinking about being a cafeteria worker on Wall Street, which I never the fact that job exists hadn't really occurred to me before now, but that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, good that they are organized at least.
Yeah, it is a kind of crazy world. I organized one of my kind of most, closest to my heart organizing drives was a group of workers that worked at the food service for Merrill Lynch down in the World Financial District. And that includes everybody from there's multiple, at the time, this changed now, at the time there was multiple cafeterias, and also all these places have executive dining rooms. And so the people who are serving, literally the CEOs and the highest level decision makers in these, incredibly massive multinational financial institutions. Those are our members that are often seen as invisible, right, and are hearing the machinations of our economics, our global economic system at play. Yeah,
but I mean, still have a lot of power because the C-suite will get very pissed off if they can't get their lunch on time. So.
Yes, it's a very important piece of the operation and making everything function. And, it's food service workers are, the food service, despite all the attempts, really is work that can't actually truly be done remotely. And there's customer service involved, and everything that's involved is really essential. And it is done by a lot of the people that are often, treated like they're, are put at the close to the bottom of the economic ladder in our country, and the racial ladder. And so organizing in food service and in hospitality, I think, is necessary for any real vision of real equality and of multiracial working class power. So yeah, it's a important
definitely
place to be organizing.
And so speaking of that, and to bring it kind of back to Philly, since we are both proud Philadelphia nationalists here.
I just want to say that I have dual citizenship, in my own opinion.
I like that.
I've been here since I was trained up in New York as a union organizer, but I came to in 2009. And I started to answer your last question. I came here as an organizing director to sort of bring what I had learned about militant union struggle here and to train some more people here. And I became the president of the local in 2012. But I had never really intended to be president of a union local. I was an organizer, but I was leading that program, and I think we wanted to be able to continue to lead that kind of fighting program. So that is how I ended up running with others for the leadership of the local.
Gotcha. And so can you talk about any of the struggles that 274 has faced since you came down to Philly, and what kind of victories you guys have had?
Yes, it's been a lot. It's been a long time now. So,
pick a couple highlights.
Yes, there's many. I mean, and Unite Here, I should say, I'm the head of local 274. We have other Unite Here locals that exist here. And so one of the first big things we worked on was with our sister local, Unite Here Local 634, in 2013, when the last time the school district attempted to close. Initially, they wanted to close over 50 schools, and they ended up closing, I think, 26 schools in 2013. There was an attempt to lay off all of the people that watch our kids. Both my kids go to the public schools here now. And there was an attempt to lay off all the kids, all the adults that watch the kids at lunch and in the halls, that allow the teachers to do their work and allow the kids to stay safe at school. Like all of them, 1,200 people. So that we were able to organize a fast in front of then Governor Corbett's office. He was a Republican governor of Pennsylvania at the time, who had campaigned on cutting educational funding and did. And it was a 2-week fast of school workers, parents, and their supporters in front of his office. And then we did a big 100-person one-day fast in August. And all of those workers, their jobs were restored at the end of that summer in 2013, before the school year started. So that was a huge moment, and we learned of victory, although it's still obviously we're still in a huge struggle for full funding of our public schools in the city and in the state. One of the big fights, another key foundational fight for us, was at the Philadelphia International Airport. And in terms of labor history, that's a really powerful one, because I don't know if you guys know that the airport here was 100% union for a long time, up until the 1990s. And then a new model was introduced. So there was one company in there, and it was completely unionized. And then they introduced this developer model, which is kind of like a mall for an airport. And all of a sudden it went from 100% union to 0% union. And
sounds about right.
Yeah, and so we have members that lived that experience themselves. So we began organizing in 2013, 2014, and started getting workers together. We had to organize each of these individual companies at the airport. So we started doing that with a few workers standing up fighting, and we did win the union quickly in 2 places. We had a 2-year battle with a company called Up on Pan to win the union. We were able to work with the city of Philadelphia, with city council, and they were very clear that they did not want that kind of labor disruption at the airport, and created a requirement that all the companies that were being brought in have some agreement of labor harmony with the union. And that has made it easier to organize at the airport. The airport is now majority union in food service, but because of that mall model and some of the challenges with it, it's still not 100% union. There's still a lot of organizing. happening, as we speak right now at the Philadelphia International Airport. But a huge victory to turn that around. And those workers went from making when we were first organizing, most people were making 7 something an hour. As we know, the Pennsylvania minimum wage is $7.25, right? It's the federal minimum. And people were actually making that. Many people, their phones were getting cut off every month, right? People couldn't pay their phone bill. People didn't really have, most of the folks that are now our members, a lot of people did not have a permanent home. They were like couch surfing with friends and stuff because people you just could not afford rent. And that's with people working multiple jobs at the airport. So we're now, thanks to the winning the union, continuing to push our legislators to use their power, since we own that airport. That is the people's airport, the Philadelphia International Airport. We have, there is nobody at the airport that should be making less than $18.54 an hour in food service, and unionized workers now. Most of them have free health insurance and are making more than the $18.54 an hour. It's been a real change, and people also have a guarantee around their hours, right? That's the hours are just as important as the pay per hour. So that's been a huge change. And most recently we have been in real battles and strikes at both the stadiums and in our hotels. So in 2024, there were 3 strikes down at the multi-day strikes down at the South Philadelphia stadiums. And in 2025, there were 3 multi-day strikes in the downtown hotel core. Those are battles over many things, but a lot around people making enough to live or earning more of their fair share. We think people are owed much more than what they're actually earning, but making huge improvements in what workers are able to take home. In the stadiums, we were fighting for. We've had multiple struggles over the years. At the Philadelphia stadiums, we had never done a strike before, and this was the first time all 3 buildings were expired at the same time. So we have people working in all 3 buildings, but they are not treated like a full-time employee, even though they work all year round for this company. So that it was a struggle to really treat people like full-time workers with full-time benefits, which we won, and took over a year to win. But we won, and it was really an amazing victory for those workers and for the union. And now we are in the struggle around hotels to bring workers to, up to earn more of the tremendous profits that are being made in the downtown hotels. And we had those 3 strikes, and there have been strikes around the country as well, beginning in Los Angeles and then moving to a whole bunch of other cities in 2024. The strike threat is real from us, both here in Philly and more broadly. And so we've been at the end of last year, the first hotel agreed to bring workers up to $30, hotel workers, the lowest paid workers in the hotels, the housekeepers, which is the biggest group, up to $30 an hour. Make sure people have fewer rooms that they have to clean each day, which will create more union jobs. And as well as really protect people's, we already have free single health care, but creating more affordable family health care, given especially the situation that we have with what's happening with our the government-funded benefits, which many people even in our union are still relying on that for their children. So making family coverage more affordable, and also being able to retire with dignity, putting a lot more money into the pension, because most people cannot really save any money. And so it's unacceptable that people have to, people working into their 70s because they can't, in hard work, because they can't afford to do anything else.
Yeah. I mean, pushing a laundry cart for 8 hours a day for years on years and years is going to put a lot of strain on you.
Yeah, I mean, hotel work is incredible. All of this work is incredibly physical, whether you're standing in
Hmm.
one place, whether you are lifting beds and cleaning toilets and bathtubs, which if anybody who's done that knows how hard that is.
Yeah.
And or you're pushing those carts. Yeah, it's the so many of our folks need hip replacements, like massive repetitive strain injuries.
Hmm.
And as you get older, that stuff really catches up with you very quickly.
Talking especially about hotel workers, uh, I come from the museum field back
Mm-hmm.
as my background, so having a kind of tangential connection to the same tourism industry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what aside from just or aside from like the physical toll that the work takes on you, what kind of conditions do hotel workers in Philly face? And as kind of an addendum to that, what are your concerns with the both FIFA and the 250th coming up in Philly this summer?
Well, many. I mean, in terms of the conditions that hotel workers face, I mean, the biggest thing I actually want to talk about is what's happened, which again is historical.
Yeah.
What's happened in the industry, in the hotel industry in Philadelphia. So I feel like that's actually the biggest thing. I will say just broadly in terms of conditions. Well, of course, I mean, first of all, hotel workers are not making in general enough money to live. We're really proud of what we're winning now in the
Mhm.
hotels, and we have many. So the first hotel sort of broke at that standard at the end of last year. We are on the verge of winning that, and 4 other hotels in the city. We still have more hotels that we're going to need to come up to that standard, and the workers in those unionized hotels are prepared to fight and to strike if necessary, and campaign in every way they need to win the standard and what already a whole group of Philadelphia hotel workers have already won.
Yeah.
But I mean, so the issues of affordability and like just the ability to live in the city, and to support your family and provide for your children and be home with your children, and be present with them and not have to have 2 jobs. All of those things are, really like very central in terms of what people need economically. I mean, also in terms of conditions, like the same thing kind of started talking about racial discrimination and gender discrimination and its economics. I mean, the baseline conditions are conditions of racism and sexism in our industry. They are
Mhm.
kind of, why does why are we at the bottom of the economic ladder? It's not a coincidence that we are a union that is primarily people of color and women. It's because and that we are paid the least. So
Yeah.
that basic need for the people's basic human worth and equality to be recognized. That is the baseline struggle
Mhm.
for every hospitality worker in the city. With a union, you can, in some places you feel that every day where the union is really strong. In some places you have the right to that, and we have to work to build up that muscle, but you have the protections that you don't have in a non-union workplace. And in the workplaces that don't have the union, which are the majority of the hotels in the city, right, as well as outside of the city, it's very hard for people to do that. They really feel like they're fighting or standing up for themselves all on their own, and feel like they're choosing between their self-respect and keeping their job, often on a daily basis. So the money is really clear and obvious, and it's incredibly important. But even more important is people feeling like that they're equal, that they can stand up and speak their mind, and not.
Respect is what I
Yeah.
hear.
Yes.
Basic respect.
Yep.
And especially in an industry where everyone is really expected to be seen and not heard, and just that, like you said in the beginning, that it's really considered invisible labor for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
that, and intentionally so, that you're supposed to have this perfectly curated experience without ever having to think about the fact that there's hundreds of hours of human labor that went into that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why, as someone pointed out to me when I very first started with the union many years ago, why is there a separate entrance for the employees in these hotels? And I think that for us, that the union worker organization is the path to winning that respect and that feeling of self-worth. I mean, that is, for me, that's why I'm in this, like I talked about my own feelings of self-respect and self-worth, and holding on to who I am. And I think that for everyone, that's the foundational thing. So the union is a path to doing that, and to making sure that more of the wealth that we're producing in the city actually comes into our communities, which it hasn't been. It's been coming out. Most of the hotels in the city are not, they're not owned by people who live here. They're owned by private equity companies and real estate investment trusts. The corporations that then they contract to operate the hotels are other big multinational corporations. And all that wealth is leaving our city, and it's not, it is not being invested in our communities. So also the union is a way of fighting to bring more of that into our communities, right, through people's paychecks. And, in this city was 100% union in the downtown hotels in 1980. And today it's probably about 25% union in the downtown hotels. And that is because, it's every time we tell people, and we say we're a union town, right? The fact that we were 100% union is a testament to the power of workers and the organizing that was happening in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, right? And the contracts that we have still reflect that. Like, we are still, we are benefiting from the struggles of people that are long gone now, still to this day in our union contracts in the city. But what started to happen in the 80s was there were waves of hotel development. Let's build some new hotels. And there was such desperation to build and to have this economic development that we as a city did not insist that those jobs would be union jobs, those permanent jobs. We have done a much better job making sure that the construction jobs are unionized, the jobs that are there for a few years while they're building the hotel or building the place. But when it comes to those permanent jobs, which are held primarily by women and primarily by Black and brown people in our city, those have not been union jobs. And, one of the struggles that I didn't talk about, but is like a deep struggle for our local that we engaged in for many years, was the struggle to organize the Philadelphia Marriott downtown, which is the biggest hotel in the state of Pennsylvania. It's 1,400 rooms. And that hotel, the approvals for that went through in 1989. That hotel got more government subsidy than any other hotel has ever gotten, millions and millions and millions of dollars. It was built union, but the workers, there were no protections to make sure that there would be a streamlined process for those workers to win a union. So in 2018, on the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, the workers at that hotel, which are a majority Black, it's a multiracial workforce, of course, but it's a heavily Black workforce, went public with their demand to have the company, recognize a fair process for the workers to organize a union more easily. And they had organized underground for years and fought very publicly and with a lot of community support for over a year in a very public way. And to this day, they still do not have a union there at that hotel. So it's just a testament. If we don't, it is possible for workers to organize, and we're very committed to organizing in the hotel industry. It is a huge struggle because of the kinds of campaigns that these companies run. And if we are not using all of our power, that the political class is not pushing and prioritizing um, the nature of the permanent jobs that we're creating when we're creating jobs, if our communities don't understand why that's so important, if we're not pushing for all of that together, we won't. That's how we ended up in this situation, and that all of that is very tied to our poverty rate and everything else in the city, right? Because we don't have a comprehensive plan to really demand what we need from corporate power.
I do like the idea of the three stadiums going on, well, their contract expiring at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we should definitely have more of that. I know Sean Fain has one or two things to say about that.
Yeah, and that's actually, that's a big part of our hotel fight. So our hotels, our contracts that we have settled are going to expire in January of 2028, which also lines up with a lot of other hotels. A lot of other hotels in Unite here around the country will expire in 28, including beginning in Los Angeles, which has the Olympics in 2028. But it will also mean that we will be expired for May Day 2028. And I don't know how much you guys have heard about the organizing that's happening here. I mean, we had May Day last year, which we were very involved in, and we're organizing with the AFL-CIO here around May Day this year and building a real working class agenda. And that's something that we're really excited about. I think we have to be out there. You can't have a general strike if you're not learning how to strike. And so people actually using the strike muscle, which is something I've heard Sean Fain say and makes a lot of sense to me. Actually exercising that strike muscle is important because if you don't use it, you do lose it. And getting our members and workers talking about how the world should be run and who should be running it, right? Is we need to be doing that as a union. So that's something we're coming off May Day of last year. We're working with a whole group of unions and some community organizations anchored by the Philly AFL-CIO, which I'm really excited about. And we are talking to hundreds of our members and asking people two questions. One is, what is the biggest issue facing you, your family, your community, our city? Really, what keeps you up at night, right? What is the biggest issue for you? And then if you and your coworkers and your community were in charge, how would you do things differently? How would you run things? And we're getting all of those answers. And we're really working both in our local, we're working to build a real vision statement for our local, like a mission statement about what the world that our members believe in and want to see. And really making that a real mission statement for our local so that when we're introducing people to the union, we're not just giving them a copy of the contract, we're giving them a copy of the contract for their workplace and also that mission statement, right, that members have put together. Which can be changed and revised over time. But we're also going to do that on this like citywide level of putting together a working class agenda based on what members of our union and other unions that are participating in this whole process are saying about, what is the workers' agenda, so that we're speaking in our own voice. And the idea is to ratify that on May Day this year, right? So to keep working to really get into our memberships in our unions. And building, having more of us committed to a vision, not only of what needs to happen in the workplace, which is a big struggle in and of itself, like we've been talking about, but also a vision of what needs to be happening in our city, in our state, in our country, and the world, and involving our members in a deeper way in that. So, I think we feel like I think that the call for May Day 2028 is incredibly important, especially in this moment in the country. And we have been fighting to line up contracts like I said, for a number of reasons, but very much with that in mind. We could have actually settled our contracts a lot sooner had we not been demanding that. So,
as a labor historian, it's both exciting and somewhat scary to see labor history happening in the future, and to see the groundwork getting laid. Because it's from my point, it's so rare that I get to, from a historical perspective, get to look down like at what's happening behind the scenes and the nitty gritty work that leads up to newspaper headlines. So it's always really interesting to see or to hear firsthand that the work that's going on behind the scenes to build up to what will hopefully be a very productive and powerful year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's super important. It's also like, who knows what will be happening in 2 years? Things have been moving at such an insane pace. And so we're both looking at that, and we're also very much, and how we're preparing, but also very much looking at like right now, like you asked about, with like what's happening here and now. And so that's why we're working to put together this, this working class agenda for May Day. And, right after May Day, we're right into the World Cup and the 250th anniversary of the United States and the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. And, we don't know what kind of presence we're going to have from the federal government during that time. We also have a joint session of Congress here on July 2nd. So it's like we're going to be really in the thick of it right here. I think it's likely that we'll be on strike at a number of these union hotels that haven't come up to that standard. And I think also really working to engage lots of hospitality workers who are not yet union in the struggle, and pushing our elected leaders to really take a stand about where they stand, on a working class agenda for our city. So, I mean, I think we have to be in it right now in as deep a way as we can be. And the more that we're talking, we're really engaging our members and organizing our members, as well as, of course, organizing workers that don't have the union. But we also have to be very deep within our own membership to really together be making sense of the moment that we're in, and getting as many people as possible to feel their own power and their own potential for leadership, instead of feeling hopeless and defeated, which, can be easy for people to feel. So I feel like we're in it now, and that, yeah.
I think that's the general sentiment for the past year.
Yeah, multiple.
We're all in it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like going back to just being a labor historian, it's like when you look back, you kind of get lost in the wages, hours, conditions, and you don't really look into why, and the member power. Like, it's the members who should be making the decisions.
Yes.
A true, democratic union. So it's like refreshing to see that. And I love that you have those two questions that you would ask them.
Yeah. And we're doing that through, so, I mean, we're really committed internally to like what we call the word we have for our member leaders is committee, right? We have shop stewards, but the term we use is committee, that every workplace needs a workplace committee. We build a local wide committee that comes together like every 3 months and meets together. And that each of those people is responsible for talking to a specific group of people in their workplace. And that the depth of that organization is really our organization. We might have, 4,000 people that are in the union. But if we can only reach, 1,000 of them through that structure, that's what we have under organization, right? Or if we can reach 2,000, that's much better. And how many people can we get out at the same time to an action? How many people can we get involved in a process to really be thinking about, the broader, their own leadership, right? People do tend to see the union as just about wages and working conditions. But of course, everybody has a lot and those are central things. But we have to be looking at everything because, of course, we raise wages and we have inflation. We have housing costs going up. We have health insurance costs going up. We have, the issues in the schools, the issues around, one of the biggest issues for our members for a long time has just been after school programs, like having a way for their kids to stay safe and off the streets and in productive stuff for them as they're growing up. Like that's really, really essential for so many of our members.
Especially in like 24/7 industries.
Yes. Yeah. And in industries where people often have more than one job, right? And a lot of people are raising kids on their own without a lot of support. And so those supports are really necessary, and it's not what we've prioritized as a society.
Yeah, I think even like something as a set schedule is such a game changer.
Yeah, set schedules are really important. That was we were very involved in the Fair Work Week legislation, which we have here, which is really amazing legislation that does not exist in a lot of cities, and it covers here both hotel workers and food service workers and retail workers, and it requires a predictive, like a clear schedule, and protects hours in a way that is essential and usually only exists in a union environment. So anyway, that was another big victory. That was an initiative that we did with Helen Gim and other folks at City Council and other organizations like 1PA and UFCW back in 2018. And the Marriott workers are very involved in that struggle. That because they were non-union and fighting for many of those same issues.
Yeah, and having it be in legislation also just helps you set that floor that you can then go even higher then. So
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I would encourage folks. I mean, this campaign that I was talking about with our AFL-CIO is called the Workers Over Billionaires campaign. And I think that, I encourage that it really for everybody who's working, whether you're union or not union, we want to get folks involved in thinking about our working class agenda for the city of Philadelphia. It obviously needs to be done everywhere in Pennsylvania, in our country. This is with the Philadelphia AFL-CIO. So I'd encourage folks to get involved in that and to come out to May Day. And I feel like that's key to, not just fighting what's wrong right now, but standing up with a vision of what we're for. And if we're not doing that, like nobody is going to come do that for us. So I just want to encourage everybody who is listening to get involved in working together with other workers on really having the courage to stand up and talk about what are we for, what's the world that we want to see, not just what we're against. We should have just as much power as these people that right now have so much power over us. And I got connected to you guys through the folks from the Leadership for Democracy and Social Justice. And I just wanted to give a shout out to them because they really, that was I've been in the labor movement for 25 years. And it was an opportunity for me to really get together with other people outside of my union and outside of just labor to like be able to think more about the long-term agenda and really think, get tools from outside of labor, from other movement folks, and also be able to see my own strengths and labor and our union's strengths and labor's strengths, and also how we can be so much stronger, borrowing and learning from folks in other parts of the movement world. So I just wanted to shout out to them also.
I want to say thank you to them as well for connecting you with us. And I did not know that they were dropping our name around. So that's good to know. We should go thank them.
The folks at the AFL-CIO are very excited about you guys also. So, and I also want to appreciate both of you for this podcast. I think it's terrific. So thank you for doing it, for putting all the work that goes into it. It's really...
Well, we couldn't do it without strong union fighters going out and making history every day. So thank you for continuing to provide us with content. But it was an absolute pleasure talking with you. And we will see you and hopefully everyone else listening to this podcast at May Day. And then at every future May Day rally after that.